On May 20th, 1998, the world of entertainment seemed to stand still. 400 of Hollywood's brightest stars gathered under the California sun at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Beverly Hills. They came to say their farewells to a man who was more than a singer, more than an actor. He was an institution. The pews were filled with giants: Gregory Peck, Tony Bennett, Kirk Douglas, Sophia Loren, and Jack Nicholson. They were there to mourn Francis Albert Sinatra. His casket, blanketed with white gardenias, held a man dressed in a simple blue suit. He was buried with a bottle of Jack Daniels, a pack of Camel cigarettes, a Zippo lighter, and a roll of dimes, because he never wanted to be caught without the means to make a phone call. The lights of the Las Vegas Strip were dimmed in his honor. It was a final testament to a life lived on a grand scale. But the most fascinating story of that day might not be about who was there, but about who wasn't. Now, the title of this story is The 6 Actors Who Refused to Attend, but the truth is far more complex and, frankly, more interesting. Some of these absences were the result of grudges that outlived life itself, but for others, the reason is brutally simple. They were already dead. This isn't just about who missed a funeral. This is the story of why they weren't there, a journey into the heart of Sinatra's world, where loyalty was everything and a grudge was a life sentence. Frank wasn't just a star, he was a gravitational force. He pulled people into his orbit with an irresistible charm, but to cross him was to be ejected into the cold silence of space. These 6 actors, for reasons ranging from profound betrayal to decades-old hatred, had been cast out. Old Blue Eyes ensured some would not be there to say goodbye, and the stunning, often dark reasons why reveal a side of the legend the world rarely saw. To understand the tangled web of loyalty and betrayal that defined Sinatra's life, we have to start with the most straightforward yet deeply symbolic absence of all: Peter Lawford. The reason Lawford wasn't at Sinatra's 1998 funeral is that he had died 14 years earlier, in 1984. But to just leave it at that is to miss the point. Lawford's story is a masterclass in how completely someone could be ejected from Sinatra's world. Even if he'd been alive, it's almost certain he wouldn't have been welcome. Theirs was a friendship forged in the glory days of the Rat Pack and destroyed by the collision of Hollywood glamour and political power. Peter Lawford, the handsome English actor, was more than just a Rat Pack member. He was the brother-in-law of President John F. Kennedy, a connection that Sinatra, ever the power player, cherished. Sinatra famously dubbed him Brother-in-Lawford and reveled in the proximity to the White House. Their friendship was cemented in the shared spotlight of Las Vegas stages and Washington, D.C. power corridors. Sinatra was so close to the Kennedys, through Lawford, that he organized JFK's 1961 inaugural gala. He saw himself as a kingmaker, a vital part of the Camelot narrative. The ultimate symbol of this bond was to be a presidential visit. In 1962, JFK planned to stay at Sinatra's lavish Palm Springs home during a West Coast tour. For Sinatra, this was the pinnacle of his social climbing. He spared no expense, famously building a brand-new helipad on his property to accommodate the president's arrival. He expanded his guest quarters, installed new phone lines, and prepared to host the most powerful man in the world. And then, the phone rang. It was Lawford, acting as the messenger for the Kennedy clan. The message was a dagger to Sinatra's heart. JFK would not be staying with him. The president's brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, had grown increasingly nervous about Sinatra's well-documented connections to organized crime figures like Sam Giancana. Instead, the president would be staying at the home of the squeaky-clean Bing Crosby, a staunch Republican. For Sinatra, the humiliation was absolute. In a fit of apoplectic rage, Sinatra took a sledgehammer and personally destroyed the helipad he had just built, and his fury found a target: Peter Lawford. It didn't matter that Lawford was just the messenger. In Sinatra's eyes, Lawford had chosen the Kennedys over him. The banishment was swift and total. Sinatra cut Lawford out of his life completely, refusing to ever speak to him again. He was replaced in the next Rat Pack film, Robin and the Seven Hoods, by Bing Crosby, the very man who had hosted the president, adding another layer of insult. Sinatra's blacklisting was ruthlessly effective. Producers, wary of angering the powerful star, became hesitant to hire Lawford. His career went into a nosedive, and he spiraled into a depression and addiction he never fully escaped. So, while Peter Lawford's absence from Sinatra's funeral was a matter of mortality, his story is the foundational myth of the Sinatra Code. It's a chilling reminder that even death could not erase the grudges of Old Blue Eyes. Of all the absences at Frank Sinatra's funeral, none has sparked more speculation than Marlon Brando's. Unlike Lawford, Brando was very much alive in 1998, yet his absence was deafening. It was the silent final chapter in one of Hollywood's most legendary feuds, a clash of ego, style, and philosophy that started decades earlier and never, ever ended. The battle began on the set of the 1955 musical Guys and Dolls. Frank Sinatra, fresh off an Oscar win, desperately wanted the lead role of Sky Masterson, but the role went to Marlon Brando, the revolutionary method actor. Sinatra was instead cast in the supporting role of Nathan Detroit, and he was not happy about it. The set quickly turned toxic. Sinatra, a world-class vocalist, openly mocked Brando's singing, nicknaming him Mumbles. When Brando asked for vocal coaching, Old Blue Eyes coldly rebuffed him, saying he didn't go for that method crap. The conflict escalated into legendary, on-set power plays. The most famous incident involved cheesecake. In a scene where Sinatra's character had to eat cheesecake, Brando, knowing Sinatra hated the dessert, intentionally flubbed his lines at the end of each take. Take after take, Sinatra was forced to eat slice after slice. After the 9th slice, an enraged Sinatra threw his plate down and exploded, "How much cheesecake do you think I can eat?" The next day, Brando delivered his lines perfectly on the first take. But the feud allegedly took a much darker turn. According to Brando's close friend, Carlo Fiore, Brando believed Sinatra had orchestrated a horrifying incident where 3 men accosted him at gunpoint, offering a chilling choice between a quick death or disfigurement. While never proven, the story illustrates the depth of fear that surrounded the feud. Brando reportedly said he had never been so frightened in all his life. Their hatred became so intense, they refused to speak directly for the remainder of the production. It was a Cold War that lasted for the rest of their lives. So when Frank Sinatra died, Marlon Brando's absence wasn't a surprise. It was a foregone conclusion. His empty seat at the funeral was the final silent word in their lifelong battle. Not all of Frank Sinatra's feuds were with his male contemporaries. His clash with 2-time Academy Award winner Shelley Winters on the set of the 1952 musical Meet Danny Wilson was so legendarily bitter that it guaranteed she wouldn't be at his final farewell. However, records show she did, in fact, attend the funeral. The story of their conflict is so explosive, though, that it's become a fixed part of the mythology of why someone would have boycotted it. The timing of the film was fraught for Sinatra. His career was in a slump, and his personal life was in turmoil over his divorce and affair with Ava Gardner. The stress was making him lose weight, which annoyed Winters, who complained his gaunt frame made her look heavier on screen. The tension was immediate. Sinatra, miserable and on edge, took out his frustrations on his co-star. According to Winters' autobiography, the mildest things they called each other were bow-legged bitch of a Brooklyn blonde and skinny, no-talent, stupid Hoboken bastard. But Winters fought back. During one argument, she slugged him. In another scene, after Sinatra changed a line to insult her, she retaliated by hitting him with a bedpan. She walked off the set for 2 days, only returning after Sinatra's estranged wife begged her, saying Frank desperately needed the money. According to showbiz lore, Sinatra got the last word. For weeks on his television program, he would reportedly close his show by looking into the camera and saying, as if uttering a curse, "I leave you with 2 words, Shelley Winters." While the story may be an exaggeration, it speaks to a feud so ferocious that her eventual attendance at his funeral is genuinely surprising, a testament, perhaps, to the complexities of Hollywood relationships. These stories are more than just Hollywood gossip. They're parables from the court of the chairman of the board. We're only halfway through our list. The stories behind the next 3 absences are even more shocking, involving family betrayal, political power, and a lifelong friendship that crumbled under the weight of tragedy. Before we continue, if you're fascinated by the untold stories of old Hollywood, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The gulf between Frank Sinatra and Woody Allen wasn't about a Hollywood feud. It was about family. Woody Allen's absence from Sinatra's funeral was perhaps the least surprising of all, stemming from a devastating family scandal that cast Allen as the villain in the life of a woman Sinatra loved until the very end, Mia Farrow. Sinatra and Farrow's marriage in the 1960s was short-lived, but their divorce was not the end of their story. In a rare Hollywood twist, they remained incredibly close friends. Sinatra's loyalty to her was absolute. That loyalty was tested in the early 1990s when Farrow's life with her long-term partner, Woody Allen, spectacularly imploded. The scandal erupted when Farrow discovered Allen was having an affair with her adopted daughter, Sun-Yi Previn. The situation grew even darker with allegations of inappropriate behavior by Allen toward another of Farrow's children. Throughout the ordeal, Farrow turned to her ex-husband for support. Sinatra was reportedly enraged by what he saw as Allen's betrayal. Farrow herself said Sinatra had a wounding tenderness and a deep hatred of injustice. He saw the situation in black and white. Woody Allen had hurt someone he loved, and that was unforgivable. Sinatra's anger allegedly went beyond words. During her custody battle with Allen, Farrow testified that one of her ex-husbands had offered to have Allen's legs broken. While she didn't name him and later called it a joke, it was widely understood she was referring to Sinatra. The message was clear. In Sinatra's world, an offense against his loved ones could be met with more than just harsh words. Given this, the idea of Woody Allen attending the funeral is absurd. Sinatra viewed him as the man who had betrayed Mia Farrow. Allen's absence wasn't a boycott. It was a matter of common sense and, perhaps, self-preservation. The next actor on our list is Dean Martin, a man whose absence from Sinatra's funeral tells a tragic story. And just like with Lawford, the reason he wasn't there is that he had already passed away in 1995. But the story of their fractured friendship is crucial because it culminated in a sad, telling detail. Frank Sinatra did not attend Dean Martin's funeral. Known as the King of Cool, Martin was a charter member of the Rat Pack. But beneath the easy smiles, cracks had appeared. Frank was the fiery, ambitious leader. Dean was the laid-back, unflappable counterpoint. Sinatra thrived on energy and drama. Martin craved peace and quiet. For years, their differences complemented each other. But over time, they began to pull them apart. The most profound fracture came from a place of deep personal tragedy. In 1987, Dean Martin's son, Dino Jr., was killed when his military jet crashed. The loss devastated Martin, and he withdrew from public life. Sinatra, hoping to help his old friend, organized a Together Again reunion tour. Dean reluctantly agreed, but his heart wasn't in it. He looked lost on stage, his famous lovable drunk act now seeming painfully real. After just a handful of shows, he had enough. He quietly boarded a plane and flew home, quitting the tour for good. He was done with the spotlight, and in many ways, done with the demanding nature of his friendship with Frank. Sinatra was reportedly hurt and angry, but Dean had retreated into his own world of grief, largely cutting Frank off. Though some say they reconciled before Martin's death, their golden era was over. When Martin passed away, the official reason Sinatra didn't attend his funeral was that he was too grief-stricken, but many saw it as a reflection of the distance that had grown between them. So, when Sinatra himself was laid to rest 3 years later, Dean Martin's absence was a given, a silent testament to a legendary friendship that had simply run its course. The story of a boycott against Sinatra's funeral is a dramatic simplification. The reality is a compelling tapestry of grudges, impossibilities, and, in the case of our final name, a quiet, dignified distance. The sixth figure whose absence was noted was not an enemy, but a man whose private code made his non-attendance. A powerful, if unspoken, statement: Robert Mitchum. Mitchum passed away in 1997, less than a year before Sinatra, so his attendance was also an impossibility. But like the others, his story reveals a fracture so deep that his presence would have been unthinkable. Mitchum was a Hollywood icon of a different sort, fiercely private, straightforward, and allergic to the industry's phoniness. His conflict with Sinatra wasn't a single event, but a slow-burning friction between two alpha males on the set of the 1955 film, Not as a Stranger. Mitchum, much like Brando, was not impressed by Sinatra's persona. He reportedly saw Sinatra as a big shadow with nothing inside, all surface. According to reports, the tension on set nearly boiled over into a physical fight, and only the intervention of the director prevented it. After that, a quiet understanding settled in Hollywood. Robert Mitchum and Frank Sinatra were not to be mixed. Mitchum was never again on the guest list for any event connected to Sinatra. When asked directly in an Esquire interview if he hated Frank Sinatra, Mitchum's reply was perfectly in character. "I don't hate Frank, I just don't tolerate him." His absence, therefore, wasn't about a dramatic betrayal. It was about a fundamental incompatibility of character. Mitchum was a man who lived by his own code, and that code had no room for the personality cult surrounding Sinatra. His empty seat was not an act of aggression, but an act of integrity, a final, silent refusal to partake in the grand theater of a man he did not respect. The story of Frank Sinatra's funeral isn't just a tale of who came to mourn, it's a stark illustration of the life he lived. The 400 mourners inside the church told one story, that of a beloved icon and a friend to the famous. But the empty seats tell another, more complex story. The absences of Peter Lawford, Dean Martin, and Robert Mitchum are reminders that some fractures outlast life itself. The Cold War with Marlon Brando was a battle of egos that never saw a truce. The protective rage aimed at Woody Allen reveals the lengths Sinatra would go to when his loved ones were wronged. These stories paint a picture of a man who was fiercely loyal and dangerously unforgiving. He was a man of immense charm and a terrifying temper who demanded absolute fealty and would cast out anyone who failed to provide it. The boycott, as it's sometimes called, wasn't a coordinated act. It was a collection of individual stories, of relationships so deeply broken that even death could not mend them. It challenges the simple golden image of old blue eyes, adding layers of darkness and complexity to his legacy. Frank Sinatra lived his life, as his most famous song declared, "My way." And in the end, it was that very way that determined who would stand by his side and who would stay away. Which of these stories shocked you the most? Do you think these figures were justified in their feelings? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this glimpse into Hollywood's hidden history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more untold stories.